the weirdest marriage rule in Spartan history. Welcome back to another fascinating journey through ancient history. Today, we're diving into one of the most bizarre and shocking marriage customs that ever existed in human civilization. We're talking about ancient Sparta, and trust me, what you're about to learn will completely change how you think about marriage in the ancient world. Picture this. You're a young Spartan man, around 20 years old, and you've just completed your grueling military training. You're now ready to take a wife. But here's where things get absolutely wild. In Sparta, getting married wasn't just about love, romance, or even political alliances like in other Greek city-states. No, the Spartans had created perhaps the most bizarre marriage ritual in human history. Let me paint you the scene. It's your wedding night, but forget everything you think you know about ancient weddings. There are no fancy ceremonies, no beautiful white dresses, no family celebrations. Instead, here's what actually happened. And I promise you, this is historically documented. The bride, let's call her Helen, would have her head completely shaved bald. Yes, you heard that right. Her beautiful long hair gone. But that's just the beginning. She would then be dressed in men's clothing, complete with a man's cloak and sandals. She would be taken to a dark room and left there, lying on a simple straw mattress, waiting. Now here comes the truly weird part. The groom wouldn't arrive with flowers or gifts. Instead, he would sneak into this dark room like a thief in the night. The couple would consummate their marriage in complete darkness, without ever seeing each other's faces clearly. And then, before dawn broke, the husband would sneak out and return to his military barracks, where he would continue to live with his fellow soldiers. But wait, it gets even stranger. This wasn't just a one-night thing. For years after their marriage, sometimes decades, Spartan couples would only meet in secret in darkness. The husband would continue living in the barracks until he was 30 years old, sneaking out only to visit his wife under the cover of night. Some Spartan men had children before they ever saw their wives in daylight. You might be thinking, why on earth would anyone create such a bizarre system? Well, the Spartans had their reasons, and they were all tied to their obsession with creating the perfect warrior society. First, let's talk about the shaved head and men's clothing. The Spartans believed that by making the bride look as masculine as possible, it would ease the transition for young men who had spent their entire lives in an all-male military environment. Remember, Spartan boys were taken from their families at age 7 and raised in these brutal military schools called the agoge. They had minimal contact with women their entire lives. The theory was that a bride who looked somewhat like a young man would be less shocking and intimidating. The secrecy served multiple purposes. The Spartans believed that these clandestine meetings would increase sexual desire and passion, leading to stronger, healthier children. They thought that the excitement and anticipation of secret rendezvous would result in more vigorous offspring who would become better warriors. There was also a practical military reason. By keeping husbands in the barracks, the Spartans maintained military discipline and unit cohesion. These men were soldiers first, husbands second. The state's need for warriors superseded personal relationships. But perhaps the most shocking aspect of Spartan marriage was their attitude toward infidelity, or rather, what they didn't consider infidelity. Unlike other Greek societies where adultery was severely punished, Spartans actively encouraged wife sharing under certain circumstances. If an older Spartan man had a young, healthy wife, he was expected to find a younger, stronger man to father children with her. The Spartans believed this would produce superior offspring. The older husband would actually arrange these encounters and raise the children as his own, with no shame or jealousy involved. Similarly, if a man admired another man's wife for her beauty, intelligence, or physical strength, he could ask the husband's permission to have children with her. This wasn't considered adultery or betrayal, it was considered patriotic duty to the state. The Spartans took this even further. Brothers were encouraged to share wives if it meant producing more children for the state. The concept of exclusive marital relationships, which we consider normal today, was completely foreign to them. Women in Sparta had an unusual amount of freedom compared to other Greek city-states. While Athenian women were confined to their homes, Spartan women exercised outdoors, participated in religious festivals, and could own property. But this freedom came with the expectation that they would prioritize the state's needs over personal desires. Spartan women were also encouraged to have relationships with multiple partners if it meant producing stronger children. A woman might be married to one man but have children with several different partners, all with social approval. The goal was always the same: creating the strongest possible future warriors. The wedding night ritual I described earlier was just the beginning of a marriage system designed to serve the military state above all else. Personal happiness, romantic love, and individual choice were secondary considerations. These practices continued for centuries, helping to create one of the most feared military forces in the ancient world. The Spartan army was legendary for its discipline, courage, and effectiveness. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off a massive Persian army, became the stuff of legend. But this system came with a cost. Spartan society was incredibly rigid and ultimately unsustainable. Their population declined over time, partly because their social system was so specialized for warfare that it couldn't adapt to changing circumstances. The strange marriage customs of Sparta remind us how different human societies can be. What seems completely bizarre to us was perfectly normal to them. They created these rules not out of cruelty or madness, but because they believed it would make their society stronger and more successful. In the end, Spartan marriage wasn't about two people finding love and happiness together. It was about serving the state, producing warriors, and maintaining a military culture that dominated ancient Greece for centuries. The next time you think modern relationships are complicated, just remember the Spartans, sneaking around in the dark, sharing spouses with brothers, and treating marriage like a military operation. It certainly puts our own relationship challenges into perspective, doesn't it? That's all for today's journey into ancient history. Subscribe for more fascinating stories from the past that will make you grateful for the present.